is log, July 8th, 2016. Constantine news. Sort of. That's the first time I've gotten to say that in a good long time. Nothing major, nobody get too excited, and I don't want to talk too much about rumor stuff or whatever. The rumor is maybe the CW is considering bringing Constantine back in his own TV show after all, and the concrete news is you finally can stream all 13 episodes of the NBC Constantine show online now through the CW's streaming platform CW Seed, which is really curious. I read an article today from Geek Nation talking about this, and I agree with a lot of what it says. It speculates, and I don't think that this is necessarily too much wishful thinking or going too far, that perhaps the strategy here is to gauge fan interest and see if people want to see Constantine back on the air, because now the CW has 4 superhero shows, 5 if you count iZombie, and certainly 5 comic book shows. They're about to have Riverdale. That'll be a 6th one. So it doesn't look like they're all that worried anymore about having the reputation of being the superhero network. For a while, they seem to be a little bit trepidatious about that. And of course, the main reason they didn't pick up Constantine was just that it was too expensive, or at least that, to my recollection, that's what I remember reading back when they passed on going ahead and picking it up. So this article suggests that maybe they're putting it there so that they can see if people want more of that show. But it also suggests that it's kind of odd that they went that route instead of putting it on Netflix. And we know, of course, based on the news that we talked about the other day, that that the CW and Netflix have a really good relationship, and that because now they're exclusively putting all their stuff only on Netflix, and they're not with Hulu anymore, and there's not going to be any place except for on CW's website where you can watch shows right after they've premiered. So why is this not on Netflix? The problem with putting it on CW Seed is I don't know how many people even know that exists, but they might have put it there because it's free, and as far as I can tell, it's free. I'd never heard of it. I was like, is this another CBS All Access kind of thing? Is the CW trying to get into this game where they're trying to where they've got stuff on Netflix, but they've also got their own thing, and so they're just like CBS, they're trying to, and of course those are related networks. Just like CBS, they're trying to get that revenue stream directly. Also at the same time, like, what even is this? And then I press play on one of those episodes, and I don't have an account, and I can't even tell if there's a way to make an account. So I didn't look at it really closely, but they had quite a few things that aren't in very many other places at all. Justice League Doom was there. That might be streaming on Netflix. I'm not sure. I know they've got a few of those movies, or at least they have in the past. Netflix changes their lineup so often. But anyway, so I guess that kind of makes sense, where they say, okay, let's not put it on Netflix because not everybody has a Netflix account, even though a lot of people do. The last statistic I saw said 50% of America has a Netflix account. It boggles my mind. But if they want to see if they want to try to get a lot of people interested in that show, maybe it makes sense to make it available totally for free, but then people have to know about it. So I wonder if they'll find ways to advertise that it's there and stuff. Or if this even is a strategy to get Constantine back on the air if there's enough interest in it. I think it would do really well on the CW, potentially. iZombie's got good enough numbers to stay on that network. I would assume that if they were able to get Matt Ryan back, that it would do just as well. I haven't compared them, but it seemed like the numbers, when it was on, the numbers that it was gaining on NBC were pretty comparable to, or maybe even a little bit better than some of the superhero shows on the CW, but for that network, it wasn't enough to keep it on the air. So, of course, a lot of people said, well, we'll just pick it up on CW, just like what just happened with Supergirl, and they passed with Constantine, but now things have changed a little bit. I think their attitude has changed a little bit about these things, and so now they've got Supergirl, and I could totally see how they would be thinking more about doing this after they grabbed up Supergirl. One of the big questions this article asks is if they could even get Matt Ryan back. It says Matt Ryan has moved on to different things with a role in the 8-part miniseries The Halcyon. I don't know what that is. That sounds like another supernatural occult thing, maybe. So I don't know what that is. I should look into it. But if they can't get Matt Ryan back, I kind of hope that they don't, of course, do this, especially because, and I kind of doubt that they would, since they already have roped in Matt Ryan's Constantine in the Arrow Flash verse. What I kind of wonder, just kind of fun speculation, is if this were to come to fruition. And again, I think it's a good possibility. If it came to fruition, would it be a watered-down version at all of the, I think, for network television, pretty sophisticated show that we had on NBC? Would it be a kind of more watered down version in order to fit better with the Flash Arrowverse, or would it go its own way and allow itself to be what it was? And of course, it also depends on whether or not you could get those writers back. But and I don't know what they're doing. But if or would it be, more like iZombie, where it just, again, it's allowed to go its own way, even though it's set in that universe and the writing is smart, and we don't dumb down, Matt Ryan's language or his characterization or anything, because like half the fun of that show was his incredibly unique way of speaking, and you'd hate to see that get dumbed down just because it's in that universe. And I also wonder if it would be exactly that same continuity, or if it would be really vague about it, because the Arrow episode where Constantine shows up, it's incredibly vague about whether or not it's exactly the same version that you saw before. Certainly it's Matt Ryan. It has it has his theme song in the background when he's there and walking around, that super awesome harpsichord music. And he plays it the same way, but it's lacking in the complexity of characterization that show had, but also it's not about him, so it could very much be certainly the same character with the same background and continuity, but I mean, so many variables. Could you get very much of the cast back? Would you make it look the same? Would you try to rebuild the same sort of sets? Would you be careful enough and smart enough about the continuity that you told us what happened between the TV show and where Constantine is now? Would you maybe go back in and document whatever was going on with him toward the end of last season Arrow, when he wasn't able to show up and help Arrow, help Green, I guess he's Green Arrow now, because he was apparently in hell, and that was kind of a fun throwaway line. Oh, he's in hell right now, he can't come help us. But Like, would we go back in and figure out what exactly was going on with the Rising Darkness, or would we just say that adventure is done and we solved it, or would we kind of start from scratch but just not talk as much about origin stuff because we've got that already? Like, would it play as a soft reboot of its, not soft in the sense that you reboot out of original continuity, but would it play as like the same thing but just vaguely, like what exactly would it be? And I don't know, I think that's really interesting. I also would, and what I would hope for, of course, is that it is just an extension of the same show that's allowed to be what it was, and they could just air the episodes like they're doing with Supergirl. I mean, it's been a little while, but that was only last year. If they were able to get this greenlit for next year or the year after, I think you do just what you're doing with Supergirl and simply give it a second season. But I guess the difference is we never solved the Rising Darkness thing. Supergirl has a definitive beginning, middle, and end of its season, and then a cliffhanger, whereas Constantine ends on a big cliffhanger, and we haven't really... there's a lot of stuff we haven't resolved. So I'd like to see that stuff, of course, be resolved. But I also think, and I don't know how many people would agree with me on this, and this would be a really risky thing to do, but since we've seen Matt Ryan's John Constantine in the Arrowverse, almost certainly, I think you would see this show still be in that same continuity. And obviously, with the big 4-part crossover we're about to do this year, we're gonna rope Supergirl's universe in as much as we can. And I think with Flashpoint, that's gonna be their excuse to merge the universes and for her not to be in another dimension. So obviously this show is not going to be in another dimension, or I think that's unlikely, but it would be kind of neat to use this as an excuse to, and again, I hesitate to say this because I could see it done really poorly with the way some of these shows and some of these episodes have been handled. But I think it'd be really cool to have a crossover with Constantine and iZombie somehow. And if Matt Ryan's Constantine wasn't already in the Arrowverse, it'd be cool to just put those two things together and have them cross every now and again, as Vertigo things especially. But it might be neat to have iZombie roped in as another dimension in the Flash Arrow multiverse, and then have Constantine go over there for an episode and come back, not to like bring it all together with Flashpoint. I don't really think I'd want to see that with iZombie, because I think that world certainly seems like a more down-to-earth world, at least so far, until we maybe inevitably start adding more monsters and things in that world, but who knows if that's going to ever happen. It's not here nor there, but I would just love to see Liv and John Constantine come together and see what their dynamic would be. But I'd love to hear from you folks. What do you think about this? Is there any reason to read into the fact that this show is being streamed on CW's streaming platform as opposed to Netflix? I just think that's a little bit odd, especially given that announcement we just got for exclusive Netflix streaming rights of CW shows. And I realized that this wasn't initially aired on the CW, but the CW has the rights to use it and air it now with the rights they have to that character. So I don't know. It's kind of a surprising turn, I think. And also, by the way, I hope this gets a DVD Blu-ray release, regardless of whether or not we ever get any more of it. But what do you think? Is that an odd thing, or is there no reason at all to read into it and think about it? Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. And in the meantime, if you haven't seen that show, you can finally go watch it in its entirety. And I really recommend it. I loved it quite a bit, and nearly every episode I thought was pretty solid. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I'm Captain Logan, and I'll see you again next Monday for another Captain's Log.